Welcome back to another episode of Speaking Tongues. I'm here today with Cordeone. Cordeone began his journey playing Portuguese balls at the age of 9. He's a multi-instrumentalist who, starting with the accordion, taught himself to play piano, classic guitar, Portuguese guitar, Brazilian percussion, drums, and the bass. And at the age of 18, he embarked on a professional career in music. His musical odyssey has allowed him the pleasure of working and collaborating with amazing artists from all walks of life, and he has graced many stages across the world, performing throughout North and South America, the EU, and Africa. And today he's here with us on Speaking Tongues. How are you today, Cordeone?
I am good. I'm great. How are you?
I'm terrific. I'm so happy to have this conversation and this time with you today. I know that you're very busy and you're traveling and you're touring, so it's
Yeah.
completely like I'm so honored that we have this time to talk today.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to your show.
Yeah, of course. I like to start each episode with the same question, and that is, what is your first language and which languages have you learned to speak?
It's always a tough question to ask because my whole family is from Portugal, but I'm born and raised in France, so we grew up talking both. But then, as we were living in France, I got to slowly kind of lose Portuguese, not lose, but focus more on French, if you will, as I was going to school in France. And then I got back to focusing on Portuguese and making sure that I was not gonna forget it.
Hmm.
My parents taught me to speak Portuguese, and we used to speak the basic and the countryside Portuguese.
Mm.
And I remember when I started going to big cities in Portugal by myself, people were not making fun, but having fun listening to me talking as an old person from the countryside, you know?
Interesting. Yeah.
And then when I realized that, okay, there's differences. Okay, I need to work on that. And not that I had to, because nobody, like I said, nobody made fun of me, like per se, but I just wanted to speak better and have a better pronunciation, better words, better vocabulary. With Fado, I was able to do that.
And you speak a couple other languages too.
Yes, I speak English, obviously. Spanish, I learned it in school, and here in New York, I got the opportunity to practice it more and more to the point that now the Spanish speakers usually tell me that I have a pretty good accent, and they sometimes don't even know exactly where I'm from, and I take that as a compliment.
Hmm.
And then I also speak Italian. I think Italian is the one that I speak the less for lack of practicing and also for because it's very similar to French and Spanish.
Hmm.
So sometimes I fool around and I take a Spanish word or French word and try to Italianize, and it works 50% of the time.
Same here.
You speak Italian too?
I do. I do speak a little Italian. I've been
Oh,
learning for, oh boy, I started learning Italian 2001 in college, and I'm at the point where, the basics, I got the basics under control, but I'm trying to become more conversational. I'm trying to become more
yeah.
better at conversation in Italian.
Yeah, it takes a whole, at least for me, it takes some focus. As Spanish, I can just speak without even like I think in Spanish, and of course there's always in any language there's always words that you miss, or even in French sometimes I'm looking for words because it's been a long time. I mean, long
Mm.
time. I'm in New York. It's been 8 years, so some words come easily in English or Portuguese. So it's kind of like the brain picks up the easiest way to say what he wants to say, not not caring about other people understanding it or not.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah. What I think is interesting about what you said about the Portuguese that you were speaking, and it was, going back to Portugal, and it was seen as countryside or seen as older. You
Hmm.
have That's kind of a funny thing that language does when you're not living in it every single day, and it just becomes this, like, the language of your parents or the language of your grandparents, depending on how
Hmm.
far removed you were. And I guess I never thought about that, in a current day context. I always think about it in terms of, like, Europeans, maybe their grandparents came to America 80 years ago, 90 years ago, and now they
Hmm.
speak a different form of the language. And but I never think about it in just like from one generation to the next. So I think that's such an interesting dynamic that you have with Portuguese.
It's funny because this little town where my parents and my grandparents are from, it's very, very small.
Hmm.
And for a long time, and I don't think it's, I mean, now with Google Map, but at the time before an internet, it wasn't even in the map. It was
Mm,
like so tiny. And people from there had like a lot of people couldn't read. Like my granddad, I remember he wrote poems, but he only knew the alphabet. So he wrote, I still have his book. That's the one thing that I wanted before he passed away. And so there's beautiful poems, but if you read it like this, you don't understand. You have to actually pronounce it and then like, oh, okay, I see what he's saying here.
hmm.
You know, because and that was already advanced for him. So there was a lot of mistakes in the way of talking, a lot of countryside and old people ways of saying things that
Hmm.
they transmitted to my parents and they taught me. And
Right.
also in the city in France where we grew up, even if it's a bigger city, but most of the Portuguese from there, they kind of come from the same place of the north of Portugal, and
Okay.
they all speak kind of like that in the north of Portugal. So it's very interesting when I now like with music and practicing, and I've been going to Lisbon so many times now
Hmm.
that my Portuguese I kind of lost this accent, but when I go back there, I hear it now like very strong, and I
Oh,
sometimes even come back to it so that people don't think I'm like
yeah.
trying to show off like, oh, you educated now,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Okay. And my brother still speaks like that, so it's interesting sometimes when we speak Portuguese to one person and he's here. I
Hmm.
hear it. Sometimes I want to laugh, but not. It's not. Again, it's not making fun, but it's like it's so cute, you know. It's so cute.
I love that. In the town that you were in France, and you saying that there are people there from the same part of Portugal and they're speaking this Portuguese the same way. And then you have French. Was there any type of mixing of those two languages that was done and maybe creating a
Definitely.
brand new language?
Not to the point to recreate a new language, but there's definitely a lot of words that are French and Frenchese, if you will, and and the Portuguese from my hometown in Portugal, they kind of understand now because they like the way it goes in the countryside of Portugal is that all the young people they went away to
Mm,
kind of build a better life. So they went to the richer countries like France, Germany, and all that. And the tradition was that, and it still is, to go back to Portugal every August. So it's like empty the whole year. You only cross old people, and suddenly in end of July, August, you get everyone from Germany, Portugal, Holland, England, all the other countries, and you see a lot of people there, and especially France, and because it's closest.
hmm.
So they got used to it. They know like a few words, like for example, the trash in French is poubelle,
Hmm.
and in Portuguese is lixo. So it's two opposite words,
Yeah.
but the Portuguese from France, a lot of time they say pubela, but you know they kind of Portuguese the word and they kind of understand, but sometimes it can lead to very funny situations because some words look like but they mean something else.
Mm.
You know, like pretend. In English to pretend that's my favorite word because in English it means something. In Portuguese, pretender. It sounds the same, but it means to want.
Mm.
So,
Oh.
like, what do you pretend for your life? Like, oh, I pretend to be a doctor, you know? And in French, it's even something else. It's to claim. Like, I claim that I'm a musician, but it's not proven. I just claim that I'm a musician.
Okay.
So, prétendre. So that's three words that are really similar, but three different definitions.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm going to take a note because I'm also learning French. My French is terrible, but
Ah,
I
you're gonna
didn't.
get there.
I will. I'll get there eventually. I didn't know that word yet, and I need to learn Portuguese too. So that's going in my notes. And let's talk about Portuguese. in Portugal, which I'm so excited because, we've talked so much about Brazilian Portuguese on this show.
Hmm.
And you are my first European Portuguese speaking
Ooh.
guest. So, yeah. But tell me a bit about Portuguese as it's spoken in Portugal. And I can imagine, as you're alluding to so far, that the language changes a bit as you move through the country. And I would imagine from Lisbon to the north to the south of Lisbon and
Like
other cities.
Porto.
Porto, it escaped my mind, and I was like, oh, I wanted to say Sagres, but that's in the south,
Yeah,
right?
Sagres is in the
Yeah,
south. Yeah.
yeah. So as you're moving through Portugal, how does the language change and how does communication change that you've noticed?
So one of the biggest thing that I noticed, and that's very interesting too. It's like from the north, in the north of Portugal, we people curse a lot, but like
Mhm.
a lot, and every sentence has a curse, and sometimes it can be very strong, but it doesn't have this meaning like that strong. It really doesn't. Sometimes it's very affectionate.
Mhm.
I mean, a lot of times that's what it is, because people from the north are known for being more welcoming than the people from the south. It can have a contrast with these words. And so one of the things that I noticed is I thought that whole Portugal would speak like that.
Mhm.
And the first time I went to Lisbon by myself, I was playing with another musician, and he has his kid. His kid had a soccer ball, and he was playing, and I wanted to play with him. And I said something like, "Hey, pass me the ball, you motherfucker," because it's that level of strong,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it's
yeah.
but it's really not. I know it's hard when you translate it, but in Portuguese it doesn't mean the same thing,
I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, no, and no, that's small comparing to. I'm gonna tell you another
Okay.
thing after that. And so his dad looked at me like, "What did you say?" I say, "Oh, I just said, pass me the ball, motherfucker." I said, "No, you don't say that. Like, where do you think you are? You're not in the north here." I go, "Oh, okay." And then at that moment, I understood that there was a difference. And in the south, because obviously, like Lisbon, they're more educated, they have more access to education, versus the north is more countryside again. So
Mhm.
people, farmers, and people like that. So they have less education and they use curse words all the time. It's just a normal thing.
Mhm.
And so I that moment I learned that there was a big difference in this thing. And usually the few times I brought French people to, like I remember the very first time I brought a French friend when I was a kid to Portugal. We used to do that, like bring friends to Portugal with my whole family. And we would stay with my grandmother, and she said something like, "Oh, you're too skinny. You gotta eat, you son of a bitch." She said something like that, and my friend said, what did she say?" And I translated, and as soon as I translated in French, I realized that I could be shocking for in French. And he looked at me,
Right. Yeah.
"No, can you stop kidding me? Like, can you say what she said?" And then I go, "No, but that's something we say." And it's very strong, but it doesn't mean that, obviously,
Yeah. Yeah.
because my grandmother was very, very loving. And I even wrote a song for her not long ago that I just released.
Yes, yes. And we're going to talk about that. I promise. We're going to talk about that. I think it's an interesting cultural thing when you have this kind of language that a lot of people feel scandalized about, or especially crossing cultures, because in one culture that's completely
Yeah.
normal and it's a part of life, and another one it's like it's scandalous. But it's an
Hmm.
interesting dynamic of how this kind of language is a part of language. It is valid, it is necessary, it is important. And I remember, like, I was learning French. I've been learning French for way too long.
Hmm.
But I was talking to someone and I said, I don't want to be in a situation where I ask a French speaker, teach me some French, and they're just teaching me like all the bad words and all the offensive things.
Yeah.
But then I got another perspective on that, because the response I got was, well, you know what? It's important to know how to defend yourself if you ever need to defend yourself, if you ever need to talk back to someone who's disrespecting you, and that's a
Also,
part
yeah.
of learning a language too, and understanding the dynamic of how that works. So, I don't
Hmm.
necessarily shy away from learning those words or understanding where they are in context, but I think that that's interesting to know that.
Yeah, it's also Latin countries like Latin, not Latinos. I mean, like Latin, European, and culturally, there's this thing where you go back and forth, and sometimes, like my wife would be shocked at the beginning when she would see two people fighting because they can get very close and but most of the time nothing happens. Versus
Yeah.
here, you cannot do that. Like if you say something, you have to assume and knowing that it can go very far. So it's better not to go there. But in
Yeah.
France, it's like, you can easily talk back to someone and it's
Hmm.
gonna be okay. Most of the time, nothing's gonna happen. It's just
Yeah.
words.
In Lisbon, as we know, is the big city. And we're living in a big city now in New York. And the way we speak here is different from the way that other people speak around the country. So in Lisbon, is the communication, is the Portuguese different in Lisbon? Are you hearing different things in Lisbon, or is there a way that uh Lisbonites speak?
Well, it's well, there was obviously a few words here and there that I wouldn't really not understand, but that I would not use at the beginning when I first when I was still speaking like countryside,
Mm.
like more educated words. But there's also a lot of English words sneaking in
Oh.
with like not that it's people are using more English words because it's also there's a lot of tourists, so people are used to speak English to everyone,
Mm.
to the tourists. So there's a lot of English word that are sneaking into, and also a lot of African words. Because now it's changing. Like lately, the past 5 years, it's changing so fast, but
Really?
so fast. But not long ago, it used to be more. Lisbon would have very big mixity with Indians, Chinese, Africans, and other countries, but mostly that. But Porto, for example, the north, there would be tourists, but there wouldn't be that much Chinese people, Africans, and Indians moving there like to live. They would go directly to Lisbon.
Okay.
But now it's changing. And so that makes that in Lisbon, there's some words coming from African ancient colonies where they speak Portuguese there, but they have their own words too.
Hmm.
And that they use. And this mixity now people are using it too. And it's becoming Portuguese. And also with the Brazilians, they're bringing words too, new
Yeah.
words.
I think that's cool.
Most of the people they're not shocked about it, or old people they don't know the words, but that's everywhere, there's always that, they don't use, like we say muito instead of saying muito, to say a lot. uh, like now young people say bué, just bué, and
Hmm.
that's a word from Angola,
Okay.
like bué de gente, bué de fish, just to say very cool or a lot of people or a lot of. But if I
Hmm.
say that, if I say it fast, the old people they're gonna think they're gonna hear like muito.
Hmm.
But if I say slowly, they'll be, what did you say? Bué, what is that?
Let's talk about Fado. Let's talk about
Mhm.
Fado. How did you get started playing Fado music?
I got started with Fado. I think my mom used to sing Fado, but she wouldn't call herself fadista.
Hmm.
When I lived in Portugal for 1 year, when I was 17, I was working in a music school, and it was also a music selling instruments, a shop, music shop.
Hmm.
They were doing everything, agency, and so I was there working. And at the end of the year, they decided that they would do a contest, organize a contest with singers from every little town from this region. And so we would be like the teachers would be the musicians accompanying these students. And so there was the drummer, the bass player, the sax player, and everybody, like one singer would play a rock song, the other one would play a hip hop song, and we would have to accompany and learn the tunes. And this young singer, she decided to sing fado, one fado, but nobody would play Portuguese guitar in the between the teachers. And I was pretty cocky at the time, I think, and not very humble. And I said, I'm gonna just gonna pick up the instrument and learn the tunes. Like, what are you talking about? This is easy. I just have to take it. And then I took it and I saved the thing, but I can't tell that I was really playing Portuguese guitar. I was kind of really faking it, playing with a pick where you're not supposed to play with a pick,
Mm.
and playing only with the three strings that were okay to me, you know. So it did the trick, but and then I got really interested in this instrument. When I got back to France a few years later, I was feeling what we call saudade in Portuguese, this longing for the country. I decided that I was gonna get back to my roots, Portuguese roots, and so one interesting way of doing that was to learn the Portuguese guitar. So I just bought a basic Portuguese guitar and I started learning by myself. I can't even remember how I started by myself, but I know that there was, oh, I had like two lessons. Yeah, two lessons from a young guy. And then I decided that I wanted to learn more the Lisbon Fado, which is the one that everybody knows. And he told me that, yeah, I don't play this kind of Fado, so you would have to reach out to someone else. I can give you a contact, but it's going to be hard because they don't, again, back in the days, like Portugal improved so much in so many ways. But in the time when I learned Portuguese guitar, there was no teacher and nobody wanted to teach Portuguese guitar unless you would live there. Like it was kind of the master and the student for life.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And as an immigrant coming from France, nobody would want to teach me. So I went to this guy, I remember. And I remember the guy told me, "You're gonna get there. I don't have his contact, but you're gonna go to this bar, and you're gonna ask the boss. He's gonna probably tell you that he's downstairs playing a pool and smoking a cigarette, and then you ask him, and I hope he'll accept." And I went there. I did exactly this, and this exactly happened. The guy said he's downstairs playing pool. I said, "Hey, I'm coming from France. I want to learn Portuguese guitar." Yeah, but I'm not gonna teach you. Why not? Because you don't learn like this. You need years of teaching. And
Mm.
basically, long story short, he gave me one lesson. I mean, I paid for one lesson, but the lesson wasn't really. He was kind of hiding the Portuguese guitar to me, doing these kind of things, you know. And I was like, "But how did you do that?" And you know, it takes years, man. It's not like that.
Oh my gosh.
So then I taught myself to learn, and then I'm pretty proud of the work that I've done. That's something that I'm really proud of because then I would go to Portugal and kind of test myself in the Portuguese fado houses. And most of the time they'd be like, "Who are you? We don't know you." And then my
Mm.
name is Da Silva, but the first name is French. You know, like the kind of thing the parents do to uh, like so that you
You get
pass like a French,
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
And so they would be like, Loic, what kind of name is that? Like, why don't you have Antonio, Manuel, or Jose, or these kind of names?
Hmm.
And then I would take the guitar and they'd be like, wow, man, you can play. Who taught you? Like, I taught myself. Like, wow. It was a lot of work, honestly, because it's not an easy instrument.
So is the tradition of Fado, is it very closed off? Like is it was that your experience that it was difficult to have these connections and find instructors and teachers? Or is that in general, like it's this institution that it's not easy for people to become a part
I
of?
guess it's less and less that. My experience was a lot like that because that was the time. We have to remember that the dictatorship ended in 74, so it's
Mm,
pretty recent. And with internet, the trips, the travels, everything, you know, the globalization,
mhm.
everything went fast for Portugal. And now it's opening more and more. I see people from everywhere in the world going to
Yeah.
Portugal and learning Portuguese guitar or singing fado now.
Hmm.
I know an Indian woman from India singing amazing fado. I
Wow.
met a woman, African American from New York. I met her because I saw a video of her learning fado in Lisbon with a Portuguese guitar player that I know from there, like one of the most famous Portuguese guitar player there. And I met her with this connection. And when I learned the Portuguese guitar, that was impossible.
Mm,
Again, there was no internet. We would go to Portugal driving, not by plane because it was so expensive.
hmm.
So yeah, it was just different times. But it's still a little bit like this. There's still always the two schools, like the old school who doesn't want to open up, and the new school who sometimes maybe open too much and not that open too much, but try weird things that doesn't really work. And I like when it's kind of in the middle. I like to go very old school and learn
Mm,
the thing and then try to open it, but with the knowledge of the old
yeah,
school and,
yeah,
knowing what you can do, what you can't. When I say what you can't, I'm being very careful because uh, I want to make sure that everybody, at the end of the day, we're just talking about music. Like you do whatever you want. If you like
right.
it, if a
Yeah.
lot of people like it, I can not like it, but it's totally okay. Like it's just my taste, and good for you if a lot of people like it.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you something so embarrassing. I went to Lisbon in 2009. I went for work.
You
I was
spoke
only there.
Spanish.
No, 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 no.
I'm trying to
Well,
find the
now
thing.
now I got two embarrassing stories because I did try to speak Portuguese to someone and I remember this woman's face just said, "Speak English." And I was like, "Oh." And I was like,
No.
"I know." And I don't speak Portuguese, but I wanted to fool myself at the time that I did. And she just looked at me so bewildered and just said, "Speak English."
No.
So that's number one. But number two is that I went to Lisbon and I did not see a Fado performance. I did not know what Fado was at that time. And I
Okay.
didn't find out until maybe a year later. And I was completely devastated because I instantly fell in love with Fado music and listening to
Mm,
any Fadista that I could find on, I don't even know if we had Spotify. Do we have Spotify in 2009? Maybe YouTube, or
2009,
maybe I was just,
maybe,
I don't,
maybe YouTube. Yeah.
I don't
I don't
remember.
know. Yeah, me neither. It goes so fast that
Yeah.
you forget what was the last update.
And so since then, I've been, when I get in my moods and I'm listening to Fado and I'm like, okay, I have to go back to Lisbon because I need to experience this music. And
Yeah,
it really touches me, but there's just something about the music that just grabs me and I love it and I
yeah.
can't get enough of it. I'd love to know, like, what are the elements of Fado music that makes a song, a fado? What makes the genre of fado? Is it the guitar? Is it the vocalist? Is it the lyrics? For our audience to know, like, what are we considering to be fado music?
Yeah, it's a tough question because first of all, this experience that you have listening to Fado and feeling it without even knowing understanding the lyrics is very common. A lot of people tell me that, oh, I like some people cry and they don't understand the lyrics, but they cry like it touches them so much. A lot of people call also Fado the Portuguese blues. So
Mm,
maybe there's something to understand in this. It's a very hard question to answer. Like, what is Fado exactly? I always remember this documentary that I saw where they were asking a lot of famous Portuguese fadistas, what is Fado? And I wanted to know, okay, what is it? His answer. This guy, like this particular fadista, that I was like, okay, what is he going to answer? Because it's interesting. I want to know. He was scared to answer. I was like, oh, I'm even scared to answer this question because it's. But I would say that for me, at least, it has to have the Portuguese guitar. The
mm,
Portuguese guitar is definitely born from or linked to Fado, not necessarily born from the Fado, but linked to Fado. And then it doesn't have to be a man or a woman singing, can be both. And they don't have to be great singers. Like some of them don't even have like the beat. They don't sing. They sing off beat
mm,
sometimes, some of
mm,
them. But the 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 emotion you're gonna put into it and the feeling and how you tell the story, because it's poems, it's stories that you're telling, has to be told with soul.
mm,
For me, that's what it is. And then there's the language too of the fado, like this, because you can be a great singer and give a lot of emotions, but
mm,
if it doesn't have this fado language, something is missing, and it can be great music, but it stops being
mm.
fado from
Yeah.
there.
What is the language of fado?
It's so hard to define,
Okay.
honestly, because I'm talking about these mealisms and the way you're gonna sing, and it's not necessarily. foreigners that are gonna sing Fado. Like the example sometimes play. I'm not gonna say her name. I don't want her to listen to it, but
Okay.
but so, and she speaks perfect Portuguese, no accent. And again, great singer. She's on beat. She sings in tune, and she does the mealisms and everything. But for me, and every time I talk about it with many different people, Fado musicians, they agree with that. Like for us, she's not a fadista. She's a great singer who sings Fado, and for me, she sounds more pop or R&B. Like, because in R&B there's R&B, there's also these mealisms.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, for example, me when I sing R&B, I feel like I'm not an R&B singer. Even if I do these mealisms, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I'm a fadista, try to sound
Mm.
R&B,
Mm-hmm.
and I cannot explain. It's the same notes, the same things, but something is not authentic. I don't know how to explain that. And when I
Yeah.
hear someone singing R&B, I'm like, oh, yeah, no, this guy definitely is
Okay.
R&B singer. But there's some famous fadistas too that I know that people don't consider them big fadistas. Like I can tell, like it's not without offending her because she's great. But and I like a few tunes of her. Like one of the greatest fadistas to me is a man called Alfred Marceneiro, and everybody agrees in that in Portugal. But he had no voice. Like some recordings, the voice even cracks sometimes, and he kept it like that.
Mm.
But the way he delivers the poem is really touching. You feel like it's your grandfather singing something to you. Like
Mm.
it sounds like that, and it's very touching.
Maybe that's why people who maybe don't speak Portuguese are so touched by it also because there's that imperfect quality of the voice with some
Hmm.
singers and it speaks to us as imperfect humans maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. Like
Yeah.
I can tell this guy touches me more than a lot of great fadistas that are great singers and great fadistas, even in my opinion. But
Mhm.
sometimes I'm like, yeah, but this guy has something. I don't know how to explain, but
Yeah.
this guy has definitely something.
Are we hearing different styles of fado as you compared it to the blues? There's different styles of blues music underneath that
Yeah,
umbrella. Are there different styles of fado?
there's basically two branches.
Okay.
The first one was born was Fado from Lisbon, and then there's the Fado de Coimbra, Fado from Coimbra.
Okay.
It's very, very different. It's almost like Fado from Coimbra almost shouldn't have to be called Fado. It should have its own name. The only reason why they call that Fado is because there's the Portuguese guitar in it. But even the Portuguese guitar is tuned differently. It's tuned lower,
Huh.
and it's only sung by men,
Okay.
and it's mostly students. It comes from a students' movement.
Mm-hmm.
And back in the days where there was still the serenades, when they would sing for the ladies at the
Mm-hmm.
windows, and this kind of thing.
Oh,
And it's the way of singing is more like opera,
okay.
more like this kind of type of singing. Like it's quite the opposite now. Like you need to have this voice to be
Mm-hmm.
considered a great singer of Fado Coimbra.
Does anybody play both?
Yeah, some people play both. I sometimes play Fado Coimbra. Like sometimes in the Fado nights, there's sometimes like a lot of singers that I'm accompanying, and every now and then there's one guy who likes more a few tunes from Coimbra, and
Mm-hmm.
he's got the voice for that, and
Mm-hmm.
so I play that for him. But I don't consider myself uh, like it's usually you consider yourself one or the other one, and
Okay.
you can play both,
Mm-hmm.
but you're mostly one or the other.
Okay. When I went to your show a while back and forgive me because I don't remember the name because it's in
Mhm.
Portuguese. But you did announce before you started singing it that it was a poem. Are there like fado songs that are standards, like ones that every fadista sings at some point or
Mhm.
wants to sing at some point?
That's a very interesting question because in Fado we say that fadishas are the musicians, the singer, the one who listens, who knows how to listen to Fado, and the poets.
Mm,
Some of them they just write poems, and they are considered fadishas too.
Okay.
So it's not only the singer or the musician. In Fado, there's what we call, there's these two distinctions. And that's also something that upsets the Fado musicians. Like in Lisbon, they know this rule. And outside of Portugal, they don't really know it. So the Portuguese singers, they sing it, but I'm going to explain to you. So
Okay.
there's basically what we call Fado canção. So it's Fado song, if you will,
Mm.
and Fado tradicional, traditional
Traditional.
Fado.
Okay.
But careful, because traditional here doesn't mean that it's old. It
Mm.
just means that there's no choruses. It's just verses.
Okay.
So if I write a poem and I
Uh-huh.
sing it, it can become a Fado tradicional.
Traditional. Yeah.
Even if nobody knows it, it's considered traditional Fado.
Okay.
And the Fado song is a song. So there's a verse, a chorus, and a verse, eventually a bridge, and that's it. And you find both in a Fado night. Like people are gonna sing some Fado songs and some Fado traditional. Now the Fado song, it has a name. That's it. That's the name of the song. That's it. The traditional Fado is like standard. So there's the name of the Fado and there's the name of the poem. So usually, typically, like a real fadista is going to come to me, and always the Portuguese guitar player, and he or she asks, "Can you play the Fado? Let's say Fado Alberto, for example. That's the name of one Fado,
Hmm.
probably named out of who composed it. So you start the introduction, da-da, 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 da, and you play the Fado Alberto. She also says in what key she wants it,
Okay.
and so you start playing it, but you don't know what she's going to sing on it. She can pick up a different poem, and so sometimes you play the same Fado in the same night, but for two different people in two different keys, and you're gonna hear two different poems. One of them is gonna talk about a lover that left him, and she's so sad or whatever, and the
Hmm.
other one is gonna talk about his grandmother, or about politics, or about anything.
Hmm.
And now, sometimes some poems are more famous than others. Like a famous Fado singer is going to sing this one, and it's going to become very famous. And so the people who sing Fado outside of Lisbon and don't know this rule, they
Hmm.
come to the Portuguese guitar and they ask, "Can you play this one?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't know this one. You don't know this one?" And then they start singing like, "Oh, that's not the name of it. The name of it is the Fado thing." Like,
Mm.
no, but I heard, yeah, but she didn't compose it. That's the name of the poem. If you tell me the name of the poem, I heard the poem in so many different fados that I don't know what you want.
Hmm. Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
I understand that. So that's really interesting. As people are creating and writing, I'm assuming that people are writing songs and they're writing poems and stuff
Hmm.
now. Have you noticed the subjects of these poems changing
Yeah,
and
yeah.
evolving with the times, and how are they?
It definitely changed. It always used to speak about everything,
Mm.
either politics or love, or just about poetry, about the nature, mother nature, or about the ocean, the sailors. A lot of them talk about the sailors too, because Portuguese people they've always been big sailors
Yeah.
and travelers. It used to be always with simple words. It was not meant to be sung with fancy words or more educated words.
Hmm.
Had to be had to be understandable by everyone.
Right.
But lately, some people are putting poems sometimes that you don't really understand. You have to like go for, oh, what's that word's meaning, and get together. So it's kind of changing in that way, and also it's becoming more popish. Like all every Fado singers, not every, but every famous Fado singers, I'm sure the label behind them are asking them to, hey, can you add a little drum to your song so that, make it more. And some mix again are very interesting, and some others, basically for me, to my taste, when I hear that it's honest, that it's being the artist's choice. Like there's Ana Moura, for example, or Marisa. They are both singers from their backgrounds are Angola and Cabo Verde. They're Portuguese, but one parent is from Angola or Cape Verde, and they try to get back to their roots and mix it with their roots. And to me, it's amazing. I love it because I
Hmm.
feel like there's something honest in it, and you can hear it with the music. It doesn't lie. The
Yeah.
music doesn't lie.
Do you feel like 10 years from now, 15 years from now, are we still going to be playing and singing Fado in the same way?
I think so too, but I think it's still gonna be evolving. But I still think that there's because it's when you think about it, it doesn't require much. It just requires one guitar, classical guitar to accompany, one Portuguese guitar. That's it. And then anyone who knows how to sing fado can sing fado. So that's such a cultural thing in Lisbon specifically. Like you said, you missed a fado show, but if I hope you're going to go back to Portugal someday, and especially to these Faro neighborhoods. If
Hmm.
you walk through Alfama, just Alfama, to mention one Fado neighborhood, you're going to hear Fado everywhere. Like every step you walk, you hear one restaurant with Fado, someone singing, because they always leave not always, sometimes they leave the door open because it's hot. So you
Yeah.
hear this one singing, then you walk like 2, 3 steps, you hear the other one singing over there. And then there's the obviously more tourist attraction fado houses, but there's also the more institutions, like the very
Mm.
old fado houses,
Hmm.
and the new ones. There's always new ones, so I don't think it's going to change. It's the express. That's something that I really like from one of the greatest Portuguese poets, Fernando Pessoa. He used to say that the fado was not sad nor happy. It was the expression of the Portuguese people.
Mm.
And to me, that is so true because
Hmm.
when you listen to it, sometimes you're like, oh, it look. Some people they don't like fado because it's like they say, oh, it's too sad. It's always sad, but it's not. If you understand the lyrics, a lot of them are not sad. Sometimes they're even funny.
Yeah.
They're telling funny stories, or and there's even this tradition, what we call desgarrada, where usually at the end of the show, there's always like a few singers in the house, and they get to sing one verse, and basically it's a battle, like in hip hop. Like I'm gonna sing one verse where I say that, oh, you have no education, you can't even read, and the other one is gonna say, yeah, I cannot read, but at least I can sing, not like you. And then the other one is gonna, and it's I like this tradition. I make sure we always do it at Leighton, where I play twice a month. I
Hmm.
always make sure that the Felicias that I invite, I'm like, hey guys, at the end we're doing this, so feel free to diss me. I'm not gonna take it personally. I love that, and don't be shocked if like with the verses that I'm gonna send too, because
I love that. So at the end of this portion of the show, is a winner declared or is it's just fun
no,
and we
it's
go on about your night?
like most of so there in Lisbon they do it more respectfully,
Hmm.
again with no curse words or things like that. But in the north, there's this tradition out of Fado. It's not Fado, but they have this tradition too in the north. But as you would expect, it goes far. It goes very
Ooh.
far. But the very in this specifically in the north, the very last verse is always something that says something along the lines of, okay, nobody is going to take it personally. It was just for fun. So don't be mad at me at the end of this verse. And then bye, goodbye. I enjoyed singing with you. But
Mhm.
before that, it's just war. But Lisbon is not like that. So they tend to put it more nicer, and things like, oh, you would love to be in love with me because I'm beautiful or whatever, but I'm already married, so you cannot have me. It's more things like that, more clean, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But because I'm from the north, I try to find the in the middle when I do that in the restaurant in Leighton. I like to be a little more, you
Yeah.
know.
And you're in New York City, so you have to have that edge too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
I
nobody's
love
gonna take it personally.
right.
It's yeah.
Tell us about your Fado music, your Fado expression, what you try to do with your music, and tell us about, what you've been doing in the genre, and tell us about your new single.
When I started Fado, I mean, I think like every kind of music, when you learn something, you try to copy, and I guess I was trying to copy a few singers that I really loved. And now I feel like more and more I have my own way of singing it, and I'm not ashamed anymore of singing because I was always, even if there's many different singer styles, but there's like kind of neighborhood styles. Like this neighborhood sings more like this other one sings a bit more like that. So every time I would sing near someone from Lisbon who would have this powerful voice, I'd be like, oh, damn,
Mm,
like I don't sing like that. But with time, I realized that my voice is different, and it's in a way it's more. I try to see the positive, the not the positive, but the good things of it instead of saying the bad things like, oh, I don't have a powerful voice. Yes, but I maybe have more of a kind of romantic voice, more smooth, and it's okay too. And so in my shows of Fado, I like to sing some traditional ones, but like ones that a lot of people don't sing anymore, either because I like the lyrics or because I like the Fado or it touches me in a different way. And I also like to write my own fados. So, and yeah, I just released one fado called Josefina, which is the name of my grandmother who passed away a few years ago. And she meant a lot to me. So I decided to compose something for her. And the interesting thing is, the second album that I released was not at all fado. It was a big mix of hip hop, reggae, soul, Brazilian, fado, all the kind of musical genres that I would play. And in this mix, I wrote this song for my grandmother, and I sang and I recorded it, and then I would sing it as a fado. So it would in this album it doesn't have a fado arrangement. It's more even like a reggae arrangement. And I didn't realize that people would be touched by this song like they are usually when I sing it. And for years, because this one we're talking about 2008,
mhm.
2010 maybe, yeah, around 8 or 10, between this era, that I think it's 2008 that this album was released. And from 2008 till now, so it's been like more than 10 years, people who heard this song live in a fado arrangement, they asked me to record it. And I always wanted to do it, but I was always scared to do it because I wanted to do it properly and well done. And so I took the courage a few months ago, and I've recorded it and I released it.
Yeah.
Uh, so I'm very proud of releasing it, and I think it's the right moment too because it took me time to sing it a lot
Hmm.
and to get some experience, more experience of in the fado singing and of playing Portuguese guitar too. So now the result is to my taste. I
I
feel like.
love that. Where can we listen to it? Where can our audience listen to this song?
So every platform, digital platform like Spotify or Apple Tunes, Apple or iTunes,
Hmm.
um, and also on YouTube. And there's also a pretty nice video clip for that song. So it's on, and my YouTube channel is youtube.com/licordeon.
Hmm.
Licor is a liquor, so liquor of Cordeone. Yeah, people can also hear very different things that I'm doing, like gypsy jazz, or this band that I started hearing when I first came here, called Uncommon Sound,
Hmm.
with great
Ooh.
musicians from here. They're musicians from more from hip hop, funk, and gospel.
Hmm.
And they are the very first musicians that I met when I first came here in New York 8 years ago now. Wow, 8 years.
I will add links to those platforms in the show
Thank you.
notes for this episode so that people who are listening and want to listen to more of your music can click those links and listen to them right away. I'm so happy that I found you and that you're here in New York and you're playing in New York, and I'm definitely going to make sure I check out more of your shows uh
Cool.
because
Please come again.
I'm probably your newest fan.
Uh,
The
yeah, maybe.
newest
Yeah,
fan
yeah.
of your music. So I really, really enjoy your music and your musical expression.
Thank
So
you.
this
Thank you. It
is
means a lot to me. Thank
yeah.
you.
Tell me a bit about some culture in Portugal, some things, or maybe in France, or things that you love, things that are celebrated, things that we're eating and drinking. and
Mm.
things that you love and look forward to, or things that you miss when you're not there.
Okay, so for France, definitely the cheese and the wine oh, cheese, wine, bread. Oh my God, French bread is just so good. It's just the best bread in the world. And the pastries,
Mm,
croissant, chocolate croissant, the all of the pastries, the eclair, chocolate eclair. I don't know how is it
yeah,
the same
yeah,
way you say it in English?
hmm,
Okay.
yeah.
Those are like I miss it so much, and I have to be very careful every time I go there because I'm like, okay, first time I'm allowing myself this today. Blah. And then the day after, I'm like, yeah, second day. It's holidays. I'm on vacation, so let's eat some more. And then when you look at it, it's been 2 weeks of that. And then then I have to work out again and do the whole thing again. And Portugal, it's definitely the what we call the vinho verde, the green wine.
Oh yeah.
It's oh my gosh, so good. So it's cold, and you usually drink it like you take your time. You eat it with a fried chicken. Same thing with some piri piri on it. It's a
Mm.
spice. So good, so good. And my favorite dish of all time, ta-da, the bacalhau.
Oh,
Bacalhau, especially the one they call bacalhau. It has actually many names. Bacalhau à Liberdade, bacalhau à Lagareiro. It's bacalhau with caramelized onions on it, and olive oil and fries cut in round, like French fries, but in round.
yeah. Oh my goodness.
Woo! This is so good. It's my favorite dish. So that I miss that. I miss also the how people are very welcoming,
Mhm.
and how it's easy to talk to anyone. Like I love to one of my favorite thing in France too, but especially in Portugal, I just go to a cafe, you order
Mhm.
the coffee. First of all, the coffee is going to be one of the best,
Mhm.
so good, and you can order food too, and you're going to end up paying like $5. Like all that food, are you sure? Yeah, yeah, it's $5. Okay, and you just sit there, and whoever comes there, you can start a conversation right away without even saying hi or whatever. It's like, oh, like, do you want a coffee with me? And whatever you're going to talk about is going to be a conversation, nice conversation with someone.
Yeah.
It's so easy to do that. And I miss that here. Some people, I feel like I can do that, but it's harder, especially in New
Yeah.
York. I feel
Oh
like.
yeah. This bacalao, which I realized I just said it in Spanish. Um
It's okay. Yeah, we say bacalhau, but it's
bacalhau. I love Portuguese bacalhau, Portuguese
mm,
seafood, period. And another tale from my trip to Lisbon is that um I ordered a calamari when I was there. And calamari here is like the little rings, like the little fried appetizer
mhm.
you get before your meal. So I'm thinking that's what I'm getting, like little calamari. And I get this octopus tentacle that's like
Yeah,
this big. And I was so because at the time I wasn't the most adventurous eater at the time.
yeah. I
But
confess that I don't like that much octopus. I'm not
oh,
that. It's not my thing. My
well,
mom loves it, but I'm not.
I became a big fan after this.
Yeah,
And I ate it because I was embarrassed. I was with people and I didn't want to be a diva and say, "Oh, I don't want that." But I was like, "You know what? Just eat it and everything will
suck
be
it up and.
fine." Yeah. And it was I still think about it all the time.
Oh
Like
wow.
it was just so good. And then I remember having other seafood dishes and I came back with all these tins of sardines and stuff. And so like
Mhm.
seafood in Portugal to me is just like hand in hand, delicious, amazing. I can't wait to go back.
Yeah, it's very good. If you go back, let me know so that I have a purpose to just an excuse to go there, and we could meet there. It'd be awesome. I'll introduce you to everyone.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I got a list. I'm making a list. I have to improve my
Okay.
Portuguese too while I'm at it if we're going to be doing introductions. I'm so thankful to you for having this
Thank you.
conversation today
Thank you so
and
much.
learning so much, so much, so much, so much. I could ask you like 11 more questions, but
Yeah, and that's dangerous because every artist likes to talk about themselves, and I don't escape that rule. So
So you'll have to come back and you'll have to come back and have another conversation with us about music.
It'll
But
be my pleasure.
yeah, until then, I like to end each episode on the same question, just to have some fun before we say goodbye. Do you have any jokes, popular sayings, tongue
Oh,
twisters, cool slang words, idioms, words of wisdom, or words of advice in Portuguese to share and to teach
hmm.
us?
Jokes. I'm very bad at jokes, but I like the words. This thing we talked at the beginning, like pretender, pretend, prétendre.
Mhm.
And one, maybe I'm gonna tell one funny situation that happened with my mom. There's this word in French, hasard.
Asa,
And so when we say par hasard, means by just by any chance, just because it happened. So
asa.
you can say like, "Do you have any pen on you par hasard?" Or "I met you par hasard," or these
Mhm.
things, you know.
Mhm.
And in Portuguese, azar means like bad luck.
Huh.
Means bad luck. Like you have azar means you have bad luck. And my mom one day met someone on the streets in France, a Portuguese lady that she knew, and she said, "Oh, I met your mom yesterday par hasard, but she was speaking in Portuguese, so she used the word azar instead of azar,
Mhm.
and instead of saying I met your mom just by chance, she said I met your mom by bad luck. It was like unluckily I met your mom,
Yeah, yeah. Oh
and
no.
fortunately she understood. But yeah, that these kind of words leads to really interesting situations sometimes. So it's not a joke, but it's yeah. I felt that was a funny thing that happened to my mom when she told me. I was like, oh my gosh, why did you say that?
Well, thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing that with us and all your stories, everything.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for inviting me,
Of
giving
course.
me the space.
Of course. Before I let you go, in a situation where you've been spending time talking to someone for quite a while, maybe after a Fado show, you're sitting and talking, you're having a drink and whatever, but now it's time to go your separate ways. What would be the best way in Portuguese to say goodbye?
I like the até amanhã. I'm going to tell you why. Até amanhã is see you tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And I like it because even if it's just see you tomorrow, it's a simple thing. But to me, it means a lot because when, like I told you earlier, we would go to Portugal every August,
Mm-hmm.
and my grandmother, we would always say goodbye, like the adeus, see you next year. And everybody would cry and cry. And my dad was always like, oh, come on. Like, I'm tired of this. Everybody crying. Let's go. Let's go. We got to go. Like, we have to hit the road. And it's a 17, 18 hours trip.
Mm-hmm.
And again, there was no internet. So we would know that we wouldn't see my grandmother for a whole year.
Yeah.
And we would only talk to her once a month for 15 minutes on the phone because it was
This
expensive at
is
the time.
expensive, yes.
So this goodbye was and so we started shifting it, and my mom started saying, see you tomorrow. I'll get back tomorrow. I'll say goodbye tomorrow. And then it would kind of, hit the thing. But after a moment, my grandmother started understanding that we would say see you tomorrow, but we wouldn't see you tomorrow. We would just go.
Yeah.
And I kept that thing. I always, when I have to travel with my wife, I hate saying, okay, goodbye, see you in a month and whatever. I just say, oh,
Yeah.
I'll see you in a minute. I'll call you, or I'll see you tomorrow. I'll call you tomorrow. Because I just hate these adios things, where everybody cries and feels sad.
It's hard.
It's hard. So yeah.
Yeah. So
So
ate
até amanhã.
ate manya
Yeah.
sounds so much better.
Até
Ate
amanhã.
ate manya, Cordeone, thank you so
Yeah, até
much
amanhã.
again for this conversation, and I'll be talking to you soon.
Thank you. Obrigado.
Obrigada. Bye.
Bye bye.